Warm welcome to the DPRK, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea.
Okay, I'm so sorry about that. I promise that the rest of this video will sound much less militant. Anyway, since North Korea is such a touchy subject, I must begin by telling you that I was not sponsored by anyone to make this. As a normal tourist, paying my own bills, I visited on a typical trip organized by the state-owned Korea International Travel Company. Our itinerary was obviously full of places that the North Koreans want tourists to see. I am extremely aware of that. I have no illusions about what kind of country this is. Unfortunately, the only way to visit the country is by going on a heavily guided tour. I have tried to keep the photos interesting and the commentary a little bit different from what you usually get when someone reports back from North Korea. This does not mean that I support the way the government operates. I do not. All I want is to show you some things that you may not have seen before. Please look at these photos without hostility. Nothing here is intended to change your opinion about anything. Have a look if you want to. Our first stop after flying in from China is the Arch of Triumph at sunset. Opened on the day Kim Il-sung turned 70 years old, the monument was built with more than 25,000 stone blocks, one for each day in his life up until then. While the arch is actually a little bit bigger than the one in Paris, the atmosphere is very different, with almost no people or traffic in the area. On our first morning in Pyongyang, it literally dawns on me what a different country this is. Every street in the city is filled with the same patriotic music. It's a wake-up call to every citizen. Now it is time to return to reality from whatever dream you had during the night. The traffic lights prevent the morning rush from turning into chaos. A main attraction in Pyongyang is Mansudae Hill and the two giant statues of Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il on top of it. If you want to see this up close, you must bow for them. If you don't want to bow for them, that's fine. Just let your guide know in advance. The only consequence is that you will have to wait in the bus nearby while the rest of your group do this. I chose to bow, mainly to get this photo. It felt truly bizarre. I don't subscribe to the idea that anyone is superior to others, be it gods or people. Nevertheless, when you visit another country, you play by their rules, no matter how strange they may seem. The giant statues are flanked by two enormous sculptures in red stone and dark metal. They show more than 200 united individuals from every walk of Korean life. Each of them is incredibly detailed, standing about 5 meters tall. I did not tell my guide this, but honestly, I was more impressed by these than by the giant statues of the Kims. The park around the Mansudae monument is pleasant, but the view here is completely dominated by the surreal Ryugyong Hotel, a 105 stories mastodon. It is by far the tallest building in the city, clearly designed to impress. For now though, the only impressive thing about it is the facade. Construction began in 1987, but as of 2023, the hotel does not accept any bookings yet. At the west end of Kim Il-sung Square, these two smiling faces are impossible to ignore. Wherever you go, you find portraits of great leader and dear leader watching over their people. Almost every time I mention that I have been to North Korea, someone will say, "What's the point? They only show you the fake nice-looking capital to impress you." My response is that I don't find Pyongyang that impressive at all. Besides, while all tours will visit the capital, there are plenty of tours that include excursions to other parts of the country. In fact, we are leaving Pyongyang right now. This is our view at sunset as we drive south towards the old city of Kaesong. The land looks barren with few trees around. It looks like farming here may have gone on beyond the capacity of the soil for too long. That said, this is not unlike the kind of farmland scenery that you will find in other cold parts of the world before the wonder of spring begins. We stay overnight in Kaesong at the Minsok Folk Hotel. In the pretty courtyard here, the last leaves of the previous year are still clinging to the tree. It's a cold and foggy day, but not cold and foggy enough to hide the beauty of this place. There are strict rules for what we can and cannot do. We are not allowed to leave the hotel on our own, but we are free to stand just inside the gate and watch and take photos of everything that happens in the street outside the hotel. Some say that this is just a show and not real life. I can't know for sure, but for that to be the truth, they would have to employ hundreds of children, adults and old people and have them perform their show for quite a while, just for the benefit of a dozen or so tourists. It certainly feels real. After a while, our guide shows up and tells us we're going to go for a walk straight into this photo. We are not the only group that is walking through Kaesong this morning. As we make our way up a hill to look at yet another giant Kim statue, we meet a large number of factory employees on their way to work. Their job also comes with an apartment, resulting in all these people both living and working together. They all walk as a group when their shift begins and ends, making for a parade of workers coming through here several times every day under the silent watch of the huge metal Kim. Driving back towards the capital, we get a lot of what I consider to be the best part of any visit to North Korea, namely the opportunity to observe the uncensored everyday life along the road. Here you can see people use a homemade ladder to climb the trees along the road leading up to their village. Branches are cut off and carefully loaded onto an ox cart to be taken away and used as firewood. This is the kind of photo that some people will claim is illegal to take, an almost certain straight path to prison. It's not exactly a display of the superior tools and lifestyle of North Koreans, but my guide was completely fine with me taking this photo. In other parts of the world, you often see towns and villages have on display the world's largest pineapple or teapot or something random like that. Meanwhile, on our way north, we find roadside attractions like this charming and cheerful monument in praise of the tools of war. Back in the capital, there are more massive monuments to see. This is the Yuche Tower, a 170 meters tall beacon of hope for the world. It shines its red torch in every direction, day and night, power cuts allowing. Standing in front of it is a 30 meters high statue showing a worker with a hammer, a peasant with a sickle, and an intellectual with a painting brush. It is the symbol of the Workers' Party of Korea. Among the many almost mandatory sites of Pyongyang is the Grand People's Study House. The library here is supposed to hold about 30 million books, of which Kim Il-sung alone is the author of more than 10,000 volumes. It is recommended to study the teachings of both great leader and their leader for at least 90 minutes every day. Their portraits are high up on the wall, inspiring all students. They know if you've been bad or good, so study hard for goodness sake. Once again we leave Pyongyang, this time to go north to the city of Pyongsong. Power cuts are more frequent here than in the capital, but the hotel has emergency power from a generator. This allows them to keep the most important functions at the hotel going, such as illuminating the portraits in the lobby. This is the avenue leading from the railway station in Pyongsong to a square in front of the large Revolutionary Museum. We are here to once again bow in front of another Kim Il-sung statue. I consider all the bowing to be the price I have to pay in order to be allowed to watch this street for a while. It's a busy street, mainly thanks to people on bicycles. Our reason for coming to Pyongsong is to visit the previous site of a university that was hidden in the forest here during the war between Korea and the United States of America. While hiking through the forest, we come upon many pieces of revolutionary art like this one. They all show important scenes from the great leaders' many visits to the rustic wartime university. It's a most unusual gallery where, to be honest, the occasional spotting of a squirrel is what keeps me awake. Speaking of things that keep me awake to this day, At a school for gifted children, also in Pyongsong, we are treated to the funniest part of the entire trip. It is much needed. The school principal tells us about children with amazing projects like cloning of rabbits, something you certainly must be incredibly gifted to do. And then they show us the school's collection of taxidermy. It's hilarious and also tragic. There are precious few animals left in this country after many years of famine where any meat was better than no meat. So, if you want to see animals, your best bet is to go see some dead ones. Why have a cute pet at home when you can go watch scary monsters like these at your local school instead? I can see how extinction of animals may not seem like such a bad thing when you think that this is what animals look like. There's a new ski resort near the city of Wonsan. We visited for 2 full days and it is nothing like the rest of the trip. Late in the season, the conditions are still pretty good. We get brand new rental equipment and access to the ski lifts for just $50 per day. Because of an embargo, the ski lift is a battered second-hand setup, so getting from the hotel to the top of the mountain requires taking 3 lifts, altogether lasting about 40 minutes or even longer when there are power cuts. The ride comes with beautiful scenery and a military soundtrack from loudspeakers in the lift towers, making the long climb feel much shorter. We take a mid-slope break to enjoy the view on our way down as well. There's no risk of being hit from behind by other skiers. We are practically alone in the slopes. On our final drive back to Pyongyang, we see several cars running on wood. This fuel was common in Europe back when fossil fuels were in short supply during World War II. Because of sanctions on North Korea, these engines are actually still common here. It's not a wildly inefficient way to run a car. 1,000 kilograms of wood may in an ideal setup get you as far as 365 liters of petrol. Somehow I suspect that the setup here isn't ideal, but apparently it's still good enough. My guide has now showed me around her country for more than a week, and I think it's time to return the favor. I give her a book with photos from my own country, in Korean. There are strict rules for what is allowed to bring into North Korea, especially regarding books. Because of that, I had checked with an expert before leaving China. I also declared the book at the customs when entering the country. It was considered okay because it's mainly photos and barely any text. She spent a long time leafing through it, asking all kinds of unexpected yet harmless questions about the photos. I think that, although it won't change anything, it's good to get an opportunity to show at least a few people in North Korea what life elsewhere in the world looks like. It's breakfast time on our last day in North Korea, and it looks like we're the only guests at the relatively large hotel Ryanggang. What did you eat in North Korea? Is probably the most common question I get. Well, this is a typical breakfast. A cup of tea, something quiet but not entirely unlike French toast, and 2 cold pieces of fish with a green thingy on top. If we wait around a little bit longer, we definitely will get a bowl of rice as well. To address the essence of the question, I would say that most of the time I don't know exactly what we ate in North Korea, but it was perfectly fine and just about as expected, both in quantity and quality. If food is an important part of your vacation experience, I suggest you go somewhere else. We will travel back to China on a train. At the station we see many people saying their goodbyes with teary eyes. People here do not travel often, so when someone leaves it may be for a long time. We, however, are not sad, but instead looking forward to seeing the Korean countryside from the train. Spring has not really started, so the towns and villages we pass are not hidden by trees yet, and the train is going quite slow. This means that we get many quick glimpses of everyday life, like people commuting on bicycles, or doing cold water laundry done by the river outside the village. Dormant rice paddies make for double the view. A couple of young boys are rolling a bike tire with a stick. It's a rare sight these days, except here. The border control goes smoothly, and we slowly roll across the river, leaving North Korea. We are free. Well, it's still China we're entering, but we actually do so with a sigh of relief. An old damaged bridge has been turned into a viewpoint from where tourists in China can stand and look across the river into a different world 50 or so years back in time. That is all. I hope you found this glimpse of North Korea from a tourist's point of view interesting. If you want more, there's plenty of that at my website, bjornfree.com. Happy trails!